What is the process for accessing our inner wisdom? Very often people talk about doing something to enhance our intuition, increase our intuition, but intuition and our inner wisdom, that comes with us. There is nothing we need to do to enhance or increase it. What we need to do are just clearing our own inner clutter, and that inner wisdom becomes available to us in a much more consistent manner and a much more powerful manner. We talked about the 5 stages of our emotional needs, and these stages were the safety stage, the comfort stage, growth stage, release stage, and then renewal stage. And we go about in spirals, something like this. I had prepared this at that time. And release is very important, because if we are not able to release in that cycle, we start sliding backwards. So it becomes a downward spiral. And if we are able to release, then we are able to move upward. So that becomes the upward cycle. And the difference between a downward spiral and upward spiral, whether it is mentally, emotionally, or any other way, is this release stage. And this release process is something that we all can do by ourselves. We could be going for therapy, we could be going for help with others, and that is perfectly needed for where we may be at different stages in our life. But this process of doing the release work on our own can also be done by ourselves, whether we want to do it with therapy or without therapy. That's choice is entirely ours. But each one of us has to take responsibility for that inner clutter and to release that inner clutter. So I want to share with you something. I generally try to be a little bit more, this is my productivity hack. So I take and grate a few days worth of raw ingredients for my salads. And as I was doing it yesterday, so I have all this, you can see it was filled with to the top with ingredients. So the first few days, it becomes very difficult for me to take things off without spilling. So I may be using something like a fork to just gently dig in little by little the first few days. But once I have taken a few, or I could be using something like this, but once it's a little bit emptier, there's more space inside, then I can start removing bigger chunks of this out, and my time in the release process becomes much more effective because I'm able to handle something more. So this is an analogy for what we are going to do, which is inner clutter. When we are first starting, please do not be too ambitious and use a bigger or a more difficult part of our life for the release process, because then the things are going to spill out and we may be feeling more drained through that process. So in the initial stages, use just the concept or equivalent of a fork to take smaller, less important areas of our life to do the decluttering process. And by doing this regularly, we are able to create more space. We are becoming familiar with the release process. And when we are becoming familiar with the release process, it becomes easier for us to then do some serious decluttering. What I'm suggesting is not an easy process, but it's a rewarding process. And to be able to get the rewards, start very small. Okay, very, very small portions of it. And once you become comfortable, so there are multiple things that we are going about in this case. One is our familiarity with this process. That takes time. For the mind to understand the importance of releasing and decluttering, it takes a while. And by using it in small bites on very insignificant portions, which the mind may be willing to release, then when the mind says, "Oh, I released it, I feel better," and then we are able to convince the mind to start releasing much more. I came across this term, which it's a beautiful one. The brain likes to hoard. So we watch all these decluttering programs on TV. Marie Kondo was the one. Her program was the one that inspired me to come up with the analogy for inner decluttering. There are many others as well, and we know that people can be habitual hoarders. So we are hoarding things. And very often, if we look at the physical world, it is a reflection of our inner world. And we could be hoarding things internally without releasing. So periodically, we need to spend some time to reflect and then start releasing. The example again is one that we use in our body. So if I am releasing a out breath, then only I have space for taking in another breath in my lungs. Nature has built this cycle of ins and outs. If I do not release my food wastage, after a few days, I will not have an appetite for another meal until my food wastage leaves the body. And once the food wastage leaves the body, then the body says, okay, I'm ready for another meal. So what is this process of digestion? We take something in, no matter how nutritious it is, there is some wastage there. And no matter how horrible the food is, there is some nutrition there. So what our body does is it breaks it down and then analyzes it and then says, okay, I will take this. This is nutrition. I can use this for the body's growth. And I don't need this anymore. After I've taken this good thing, let me release it. So the process is happening within ourselves at all times. And this inner decluttering process has to mirror that process in the body, which means whenever we go through a life experience, whether it's a good life experience or a challenging life experience, we are facing this situation of there is something good in it for us that we need to keep, and there is something that we no longer need, which we need to release. So that process of keeping something from it and releasing has to happen. And because we are not used to this process, we don't think about it. What we do is we take the good, or sometimes the so-called good, because chocolates or sugar can be very tempting but may not be good for us. So we are just going by the outward thing to say this is a good life experience or this is not so good life experience. But actually it is the times when we are facing challenges where the maximum inner growth happens. So that is actually a time for greatest reflection, because the greatest good comes out of our challenging life situations. So when we are looking at our life experiences, to reflect on it and say, this is something good that I want to keep. This is something that I have learned the lesson. I don't need to keep this anymore. I'm releasing it. And that process is a decluttering process. When we hoard, we are not releasing the negative aspects of that good experience, which no longer is needed for us. And if we don't release it, we are not creating space in our life for more new experiences. So that process needs to happen, and it needs to happen with courage, especially if it is a negative experience or a challenging experience. And if we don't do this process after a while, because we are bringing other experiences in our life, so that's when the hoarding starts happening. The body says, okay, this person is not ready to deal with this. Let me push it into some part of the body. Where is a good place to put it in the body? And we start moving our emotions, and this is what we do in body talk as well. The body starts moving the emotions into specific parts of the body, and over time, if we don't acknowledge and we don't release, the next time something happens, the body says, oh, yeah, that's a good place. Last time I put it in that ankle or that knee, I think I will put it there. So the emotions that have not been acknowledged, that have not been dealt with, all of those start being processed and put in different parts of the body. And then over time, that part of the body develops pain, develops problem. All those pains, all those problems are a cry for help. Hey, look, something is happening in the inner world you have not dealt with. uh, this pain is a reminder. And when we start analyzing it this way and start releasing it, and this is something that so many of my clients have gone through in body talk sessions as well, is they suddenly feel lighter, things start shifting for them just by releasing the emotions that are stored in different parts of the body. There are many other ways that we can release ourselves. And what I want to share with you is two different things that we can do. First is, and this works only because we are novices, it works only if we are consistent in it, because we are going to use a very, very small spoon or a small fork to take out our clutter and move it out. And because we may not have done this, there may be so much of clutter. Unless we are consistently doing it, we may not see a difference. So I suggest 5 to 10 minute time is good enough whenever we are doing this, preferably daily. If you can't do this daily, at least 1 or 2 times a week or more, as often as you can. Just set aside 5 to 10 minutes to do this process. And once your mind is used to this, then it becomes faster. It can even be 2 to 3 minutes and it'll be done. So the first step is to blindly jump in and say, this works, and try it for a week. Once you're trying it for a week, then you yourself will feel some shifts. And when you feel the shifts, it becomes easier for you to believe, and then you can take bigger steps and tackle bigger issues. So, what is the process? The process is to just reflect on one painful area or one painful experience that you may have had for the initial stages, because you're going to use a very simple thing. Pick up something that's not so traumatic. And then in Louise Hay's workshops, the statement that we use is, it's okay to feel, express, and then release. So that reflective process is the feeling process. And then we are expressing, this is what I felt. And then you release. It's okay to feel, express, and release. And you do this a few times. Once you have done, said the statement a few times, it's okay to feel, express, and release. And we do this, and you can imagine how long it's going to take. 5 to 10 minutes. Visualize the scene, feel that emotion that you felt, and then acknowledge that you handled it well, or it was a difficult thing and you tried your best. And then it's okay to feel, express, release. Once you do this for a few times, and then you can have faith that you have released at least some portion of that feeling and emotion that's been cluttering your inner world. Release it and quickly move into something that is energizing, that moves your body. So it could be a walk, it could be a dance, it could be music that you heard in your childhood, it could be yoga, it could be just a shower. Do any of those things, because you don't want your day to be filled with that feeling that you had when you were a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. You don't want to do that. So you want to shift your energy. Do that and then forget about this for the rest of the day. It may be a little bit difficult to forget because suddenly, as you're doing your daily routine, that old memory, that incident and related incidents starts coming up in your mind, you start remembering things that you thought you had forgotten. And that is a good thing. It's a good sign, because what is happening is it was dumped, that whole thing was dumped in the subconscious mind. And by your consciously trying to release it, the subconscious mind is saying, okay, uh, things related to this incident, I think this person is ready to release. So it sort of bubbles up from the subconscious up into your conscious mind. And when it is at your conscious mind, if you spend too much time recollecting, remembering everything, then you're pushing it back into the subconscious mind. So all we need to do then in that stage is, it's coming up into the conscious mind. Oh, this process is working. I'm ready to release it. Again, you can say it's okay to feel, express, release, and then watch it go away from the conscious mind. Don't chase this feeling in the conscious mind. Let it go. And you will find over the next few days that things are beginning to shift for you. It's such a simple process. There's no harm done in this. Pick the simplest ones that are easier for you in the initial stages. And as you keep doing this daily or at least a few times a week, you will find that it becomes easier and easier, and it becomes more energizing as well. One suggestion is to not do this process when you are just going to bed. Do it preferably at a time when you are awake and you can quickly use your conscious mind and your body to shift the energy out of that. This process is easy. It is simple. It does not need to be complicated. So try it and then let me know. I hope that's been useful to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye. Namaste.